Hello everyone. Again, myself, Dr. P.K. Prabhakar, here with you, and I welcome you all for this training module, especially on the cold chain. And in this training module, I shall be talking about the end product quality control in cold chain. So the moment when we talk about the end product quality, especially for the agricultural produce, when it is being transported or when it is being stored, okay, at a specific temperature and in the context of the the cold chain, right? So in that case, we need to understand what are the different properties of the agricultural produce which are going to be affected in the cold chain, right? Even we store the products at freezing temperature, sometimes we can store the products at the chilling temperature. So how the product qualities are going to be changed, and if those changes are not acceptable, then how we can control those changes in order to have desirable product quality, right? So before going to the cold chain processing, the cold chain of the agricultural produce, what are the different processes and the prerequisites which we can employ in order to improve the quality of the products, or in order to retain the desired quality of the products in the cold chain, right? So here we can see in this slide the pre-freezing considerations, right? So as I talked about in the cold chain, many more processes are there, and the conditions are there. We can go for the deep freezing concept, we can go for even the freezing, we can go for the chilling, right? So in this specific slide, the pre-freezing considerations of the different agricultural produce, right? So maybe what are the different pre-freezing considerations for the fruits and vegetables, and the meat products, and the meat, and the fish, and the fish products. We can see that in all these three cases, the initial considerations which we can employ, which we can make, that is the selection of high quality raw materials, removal of foreign bodies, and the same is applicable in the other two one, like selection of high in the product, in the meat, in the fish, and all are like selection of high quality raw materials also includes the microbial load. Yeah, so microbial load population should be very low, or it should be under the acceptable limit. And specifically in case of the fish as well, the same considerations we can employ, and the microbial status in terms of the coliforms and the total viable counts and the staphylococcus, these populations should be under the limit, or it should be very low, right? And the next considerations for the fruits and vegetable, like selection of the suitable cultivars for freezing and frozen storage, because the different varieties when the different varieties of the agricultural produce, like the fruits and vegetable, when it is being stored at a lower temperature, or at the chilling temperature even, or it undergoes for the deep freezing, then since the different cultivars are actually having some differences in the context of the little bit compositions as well, and the structural attributes, so these compositions and structural attributes actually affect the freezing process as well, and the quality of the frozen products, right? So this is also applicable in the meat and the fish. So like the many considerations are there, the safety of produce, and in case of the meat, like consideration proper livestock breeding or diet. In case of the fish, like the variety in fish species regarding sensory, odor, flavor, so many more parameters. So if you go through these specific slides, we can see that the many more considerations are there which we have to employ before going to the freezing process of that agricultural produce. Other some considerations, like you can see that how we are cutting it, how we are making the slices of the products, even in the fish, the filleting, how we are doing, what should be the sizes, right? What should be the thickness of the products, right? And what kind of the behavior in terms of the protectants, okay, cryoprotectants, phosphates and the carbohydrates reduce textural changes. I mean, if you'll see the compositions and the treatments, and even the some additional, maybe the chemical treatments, maybe some blanching, so many more processes, many more pre-treatments, many more prerequisites are there which actually affect the process of freezing, efficiency of freezing, as well as the quality of the products which are going coming out after freezing. Okay, so these freezing considerations, why these are important, because we can see these considerations are actually directly or indirectly affect all three important things. One is the freezing operations, efficiency, and third is the quality of the end products, right? So for example, if we'll think about that, what kind of if suppose the rapid freezing and even for the slow freezing, in both cases the compositions and water contents which also affects. So the composition of the fruits and vegetable, and the composition of the meats, and the composition of fish, these all in terms of the water content which are different. Okay, so they behave differently when it undergoes the freezing process, right? So you can see that sometimes you can find the rapid freezing which produce the very small crystals. So actually it does not change the texture of the product a lot, while the slow freezing actually produces very larger crystals, so which in turn affect the quality. That means the textile properties are going to be damaged or compromised in the end products. Okay, so in this way we can say that the pre-freezing considerations, that may be the pre-treatments, that may be the different prerequisites, and that is related with the freezing process as well, and even the raw material considerations, and even some other physical process, the chemical treatments which we are employing to the agricultural products before freezing. Okay, so these considerations are very important. So everyone must know about the how do we have to select the products, what kind of treatments we can employ on the different agricultural produce in order to get the best end product quality in the cold chain or in the freezing operations, right? Next, if you'll see what are the most important quality aspects in the fruits and vegetables. So many more quality aspects are there, and that we can one by one we can look at in this specific slide. That is the quality demanded in freezing frozen food based on the intended use of the product. Yes, the desirability of the products are also important, and the desirable characteristics are also very important. So demand, that means it is also related with the desires and what kind of properties should be there in the product, so that the demand of the product will be increased. So those properties are very important, which are making the product to be very demanding, right? So if the fruit is to be eaten without any further processing after thawing, texture characteristics are more important. So texture is very one of the most important properties which are required to be taken care. In general, the conventional methods of freezing tend to destroy the turgidity of living cells in the fruit tissues. Okay, the other one, like the different from the vegetables, fruit do not have a fibrous structure that can resist this destructive effect. So at some context and at some examples, this is obviously true, and other we can see additionally the fruits to be frozen are harvested in the fully ripe stage and are soft in texture. On the contrary, a large and the great number of vegetables are frozen in an immature state, and the fruits decrease in quality with processing. It is obviously, it is true, no process is there which will actually will not affect the quality of the products. So every process has to affect the quality of the products, right? So now the pre-freezing considerations which we have discussed a lot. So through certain examples, like the specific examples will take up and we can understand properly. So see, the characteristic of the raw materials are of primary importance: genetic makeup, climate of growing area, type of fertilizations, maturity of the harvest, ripening, and a combination of color, pressure test is a better way to assess the maturity level of for the harvesting. So that means at what maturity level we have to harvest. Thereafter we can go for the freezing, or we can go for the some other operations in the cold chain. So the pre-considerations like washing, cutting generally results in the losses when applied after thawing. Thus, fruits should be prepared prior to freezing process in terms of peeling, slicing, cutting. Addition of sugar is an extremely important pre-treatment for fruits. Okay, so at the I mean, even left side we can see the different stages. I mean, the color is being changed, so through which we can identify the different stages of the ripening. And thereafter the processed products, which are how it is going to be packaged, and like the pre-process handling from the time vegetables are picked until ready to eat is one of the major concerns in quality retention, of course. And how it is going to be affected, like the crop cultivar, productions, and the maturity, how it is going to, so suitability for mechanical harvesting, uniformity, exceptional flavor and uniform color and desirable textures, resistance to decrease, and high yield. Okay, so here we can see the different physiological processes in terms of basically the maturations, the ripening, all those things. So it starts from the cell division. So at very small stage, it is a very embryonic situations, and which is going to increase and develop through the cell division process, right? Thereafter the expansion, maturations, ripening, and the last stage which we can see the senescence. So definitely we cannot go for the freezing of the products which are under the senescence, because when we go for the thawing, the ultimately, because in this case it has already suffered with the senescence, and the moment when we go for the freezing of this last product, and after thawing, when we'll try to eat it and try to consume it, you can find that the texture is completely compromised, and the texture is completely damaged. Okay, so other harvesting. So we are having the different methods of harvesting, because harvesting affects the quality of the product. So if we are nicely harvesting and some mechanical means, so we need to ensure that the product should not be mechanically damaged. There should not be any kind of pressures, and there should not be any kind of thrust which will damage the cuticle layer, and ultimately which will compromise the product. That's why we used to say that the determination of the optimum harvesting time is very, very critical. So vegetables such as the green peas, sweet corn only have a short period during which they are of prime quality. So in this case, we need to be very much careful when to harvest and when to go for packing and when to go for the subsequent freezing. So delayed beyond this point, quality deteriorates and the crop may quickly become unacceptable, right? So the site selection for growth, nutrition of crop, and use of agricultural chemicals to control the pest and disease. Why I'm just telling you and explaining these things, because see, in the freezing process, the quality of the products, the raw material is very, very important. So that is why how the quality of the raw materials we can manage. How we can improve the quality of the raw materials. So the agricultural practices, nutritions which we are providing, and the condition of soil, condition of environments. Thereafter, when the crop is grown and the fruit is there, so at what stage we have to harvest and how we have to harvest, what kind of the different methods should be there to harvest, so that we can ensure the good quality of the produce, and the produce should not be mechanically damaged, and all those things. So that is why these are very, very important in order to maintain the raw material quality, and raw material quality is very much important to get the end product quality in the cold chain or in the freezing process, right? So here we can see that the different agricultural produce like vegetable, asparagus, beans, beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, corn, and the greens, okay, herbs, mushrooms, peas, peppers, potatoes. So many more vegetables are there, and we can see how you have to do the slice, how you have to wash it, what kind of water we can use, what should be the the cleaning process, washing process, and what should be the agent of the washing process. If the water is there, then it should be chlorinated, or it should be, the different processes are there in order to reduce the microbial load, right? And thereafter the sizes are very, very important, and how the slices should be there, okay, the selection, sorting, these all are very, very important. Thereafter we can see that the treatment like the blanching, and thereafter the blanched products, if it is going under the freezing, then what could be the conditions of the blanching process, right? So you can see that asparagus, if we are going for the water blanching, so the time should be 2 minutes, and steam blanching, it should be the 3 minutes. Like, so different, in case of the beans, beets, broccoli, so the different blanching processes are there. That may be the steam blanching, that may be the hot water blanching, okay, and other, maybe in some cases we can also employ the chemical blanching. In some of the cases, the many advanced methods now we're doing, like the microwave blanching we can do, infrared blanching we can do, radio frequency blanching we can do. So nowadays many more advanced processes are there for blanching the products, okay. And this blanching, why it is required? Because we need to reduce the enzymatic activity, and enzymatic activities, when it is going to be arrested, so thereafter the spoilage will be very, very less. So and other is additional benefit is that it fixes the color, it maintains the color, right? And sometimes you can find that it reduces the microbial load as well, okay. So this table is very, very informative for all the people who are working in the cold chain. So all the stakeholders of the cold chain, they must go through this table, so that they can have the proper knowledge of agricultural produce, and how the preparation should be there, what kind of blanching operations should be employed, and then we go for the freezing process, right? So if you'll see that in terms of the sensory quality, that means what should be the texture, how it should look like, okay. So different aspects are there. So in the texture, the cell walls rupture during the freezing, and thawing, and the freezing one. So many more terms are there which are also important to understand, right? Because these we cannot say that the food processing operations always best for improving the properties. Yeah, improving the properties is important, and it is there, but at the same time we need to that may be the very less, but it is there. We need to compromise with the quality as well, right? So the chemical aspects of the freezing, we are eliminating any delays during pre-freezing operations, and the blanching also, as I discussed as well, that chemical blanching we can also do. So microbiological aspects, we can see that the major concern, growth of the microbes during the thawing, fluctuations in storage temperature, careful inspection of the frozen. So these are the things which can happen during the process. So we need to be very much careful in order to control these things, and so that our end product quality should get improved. And if you'll see in the context of the nutritional quality and energy contributions, so we can see that the fruits, the most of the frozen fruits will maintain a high quality for 8 to 12 months, and unsweetened fruits will lose quality faster than those packed in the sugar or sugar syrups. For the vegetables, we can see that the most vegetables will maintain a high quality for 12 to 18 months at minus 18 degrees Celsius or lower. And other the conditions, the different parametric conditions, if you'll see that the fruits, so that maybe the climatic fruits, maybe the non-climatic fruits, how they are behaving. So the point number 1, which discusses that the climatic fruits like bananas are plucked, which they are green and go through controlled ripening during the transport. The fruit requires a careful control over the temperature and the atmosphere. Stores has gas-tight structure to reduce the diffusion. Fruits are sealed inside these stores. Another point that this atmosphere is monitored and modified using chemical removal or the ventilation processes. Ethylene is also used in climatic fruit for ripening. So these are the certain considerations as well in the terms of the quality and especially nutritional quality assurance, right? In other slides we can see the vegetables. So different the parameters are there which must be taken care. So generally the most vegetables contains high proportion of water, got wilt rapidly as they dry out. So these are the things that we have to keep in our mind. So high humidity level is preferred around 90 to 98% saturation, and the temperature should be close to their freezing point at 0 degrees Celsius. Another point is the vegetables cold store has large evaporators to maintain high quality humidity. Mold growth and the insects are also prevented by low temperature. The produce like potato and the cucumber stored at high temperature conditions vary with the variety as well, and the ripeness when plucked and the required time of storage. Onions, garlic stored at 60 to 70% humidity, which are not stored with other vegetables. So in the other different agricultural produce like the meat industry, so for meat and meat products, the carcass should be, so these are the certain considerations we can maintain. So carcass should be refrigerated as soon as possible after slaughtering. A speed of cooling depends upon the thickness of the joint. Lean meat parts should not be cooled below 10 degrees Celsius after 10 hours of slaughter. 24-hour time should be given in cooling stage of beef. Prevent weight loss by evaporation from the surface. Careful design of cooler is required. Good air circulations. Humidity level is of 90 to 94%. Air should not be too dry or too humid. Optimum air velocity and air temperature to reduce the weight loss. For optimum air circulation, carcass are hang from the rails and cold air is fan circulated. Chilled meat with bone is stored at 0 degrees Celsius till it's sealed. So there are different considerations and the parameters which are required to be taken care, especially in the meat products and the meats, and which are very, very important for the professions who are working in the meat industry. Now some other products like the boned, boxed and the processed meats. So there are certain considerations. For meat processing, meat should be at or below 0 degrees Celsius. Textile sock distribution can be used for air movement. Cut meat is generally vacuum packed or wrapped directly after cutting. Cut meats are kept in the frozen conditions to extend the shelf life. The freezing process may be in cooled air blast. For other products like the pork and the bacon, the fresh pork has less shelf life than the beef, but it is handled in the same way as beef. There are two methods to make ham and bacon. One, they immerse the meat in brine for period, and other fast method is to inject the cold pickle with hypodermic needles in the cuts. Smoking carried out at 52 degrees Celsius so that the bacon must be cooled again. For poultry, after evisceration, carcass is washed and chilled at 4 degrees Celsius using cold air jets. Larger birds are cut short so that the flesh can be cooled to 0 degrees Celsius to keep it firm for cutting. Freezing is done by cold air blast, and freezing of some poultry is done by spraying liquid CO2. For the fish products, there are different considerations which definitely we should employ. The fish should be kept frozen after catching from until it gets sold, frozen or processed. Generally, fish are kept in the refrigerated seawater at 0 degrees Celsius by sail and tube evaporator or by expansion coils. The seawater should be cleaned or chlorine dosed if applicable. In these environments, it can be stored up to 4 days. Ice is used too on board. Where refrigerated storage is used, the humidity should be kept high using evaporators so that the fish surface is kept moist. Some fish factory vessels carry out cleaning, filleting and the rest operations on the board, and then freezing store for the final product. Fish which is stored in air blast freezer through glazing of ice by dipping in clean water. It prevents fish from the effects of the dehydration in subsequent storage. So we can see that the different considerations are there, and what kind of practices which we are employing at the place of the harvesting, and what should be the temperature, and for attaining that particular temperature, what kind of the steps, what kind of the methods we can adopt, right? For milk and milk products, we can have, these are the very basic fundamental things which we need to keep in our mind. After milking from animal, milk should be cooled down to 4 degrees Celsius in 2 hours under hygienic conditions. At this temperature, many microorganisms present will not multiply at a faster rate because of their activities to be arrested at a lower temperature, and the milk can be transported for the processing. After churning, butter remains in its plastic state. After packing of it, it should be stored at 5 degrees Celsius to crystalline the fat, and long-term storage of butter requires a temperature of -25 degrees Celsius. For ice cream, where the freezing is very, very important, because in ice cream, the ice crystals are so important. When we consume it, it should melt uniformly, and so that we can feel it with high curiosity, right? So especially for the ice cream products, there are 3 main stages: mixing, freezing to a plastic state, and hardening. The basing in liquid form is cooled using chilled water in plate heat exchanger. Afterwards, it is kept for aging for few hours and stored at 2 to 3 degrees Celsius in jacketed tanks with chilled water in jacket, right? So after aging, it is freezed rapidly with a controlled proportion of air to provide it edible light texture with 50% air and the 50% ice cream mix. So generally, ammonia is used as a continuous ice cream freezer. In this process, the ice cream lives at -5 degrees Celsius. It is hardened at a temperature of -25 degrees Celsius or even lower. So final freezing should be as rapid as possible to make small ice crystals. As I discussed earlier as well, the formation of a small ice crystal is very, very important in the ice creams, right? The moment when we consume it, so it should melt uniformly, and we feel our curiosity as well. So the air blast freezes at -40 degrees Celsius is used commonly. 2-stage compression systems are used. So if you see for the bakery products, because nowadays the frozen dough is very, very important, right? So the dough retarding cabinets are being used in most bakeries. So the bread dough are made and put into a storage at temperature approx -4 to -3 degrees Celsius, depends on the required retard time, and that can be up to 3 days. So an automatic timer terminates the cooling and bring dough at proving temperature when required. So this way the stocks can be ready for the extra demands. Post freezing, so these are the things that we have discussed as a pre-freezing considerations. Thereafter, during the freezing process, what kind of considerations are required. Now the post freezing, like the thawing. Okay, thawing is one of the important operations. So refrigerator thawing, maybe cold water thawing, microwave thawing, cooking without thawing, frozen also tick like this. So different products are there, and differently we are behaving, and in the product are also behaving differently. So we can see in the thawing what kind of changes are brought in the products. Okay, so we have seen in this lecture and in this talk, we have seen that the pre-freezing considerations, and thereafter the different considerations during the freezing and the considerations after freezing, and why all these pre-treatments, all these prerequisites, all these considerations and the post considerations are important, because we need to ensure the good quality and products during the freezing or different cold chain operations. I hope this specific lecture will definitely make you to understand all kind of processes related to freezing of different agricultural produce in the cold chain. Thank you.